All right, let's get back to what's happening here in Ottawa as the first charges have been laid in the robocalls affair against a former Conservative staffer named Michael Sona. But it was the automated telephone scheme that sent voters to the wrong voting locations. Was it all the work of one person, or was it really an orchestrated systematic act, as Sona himself alleges? Will this charge put the campaign controversy in the riding of Guelph to rest, or will it blast open a broader probe? Joining me now to get the fallout on this from Washington is Michelle Rempel. She's the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment. With me in studio is the NDP Foreign Affairs critic, Paul Dewar. And in Toronto, the Liberal Treasury Board critic, John McCallum. And Liberals will be gathering in Toronto later this week. Let me start with you, Michelle Rempel. Yesterday, Michael Sona's lawyer called for a full public inquiry in the robocalls case, not just in Guelph. Michael Sona was on this program saying he won't take the fall for this. He wants the inquiry to get to the bottom of the alleged fraudulent calls made in other ridings across the country. What's your reaction to this charge?
Well, personally, I'm really glad that, first of all, our party worked proactively with Elections Canada on this particular matter. You know, I think that the outcome will play out in court now. I think, though, what your viewers need to know is that, and for my colleagues here on the panel as well, they would agree that campaigns that happen locally are separate and distinct entities. You actually have to register a campaign when you run as a candidate from a national campaign. So, you know, any sort of insinuation that this is directly linked to our national campaign, I think, is frankly libelous. And we've been working with Elections Canada all along. These are two very important distinctions to make, and we're very glad that this has progressed in this manner.
Paul Dewar, what's your reaction to that?
Well, clearly, Evan, what we have here is not a Lone Ranger. You know, Mr. Sona, if anything he can be accused of is he was the guy who took the ballot box and ran away with it. But he can't be the person who is solely responsible for the robocall scandal that we have here. So the Conservatives can say whatever they want, they just have, about lecturing people what they should be listening to and what we should be believing, and I guess what I should say if they had their way. But the facts are, we now have a charge. We had asked Elections Canada to pursue this charge a while ago. The NDP had. We put a motion in the House to do so. But at the end of the day, as I said on this program yesterday, you know, the plumbers in Watergate didn't act alone. Sona did not act alone, and we'll be really interested to see what the facts and the evidence are. To think that this was a guy who was working on his own.
But then why hasn't he mentioned any? Listen, I interviewed him, and I've talked to him many times. I guess my question, though, is, and I've asked him the same question, if there's others involved, why doesn't he name names?
Well, that's a good question. I hope
that. What if he doesn't know any other names? He's alleging, but he doesn't know.
That's what the investigation will be about, and the court case will be about ultimately. The difference here, Evan, he has a lawyer now. He has someone to protect him. And we've seen many people been thrown under the bus by this government. There's, you know, that's usually the MO of this government. Throw someone under the bus and that's it, it's over. This guy isn't obviously going to do that. And we now have a court case. So this is going to be evidence that is presented, and there will be questions and examination of evidence by lawyers. That's very different than just putting out talking points and hoping they land in the right place.
Let me just show our viewers what the Commissioner of Elections, the Commissioner of Elections, Yves Cote, has said in a statement when this one charge was announced. Again, it's one charge. The strong public reaction to the fraudulent telephone calls made to electors in Guelph during the May 2011 general election shows how deeply disturbed Canadians were by what happened. I hope that the charge we filed today will send a strong message that such abuses under the Canada Elections Act will not be tolerated. That's Yves Cote. John McCallum, I mean, it's one charge here. Does this really rise to the level of a public inquiry?
Well, look, first of all, I think that statement you quoted from Yves Cote is the most important point. It's critically important that Canadians' faith in the integrity of the electoral system be reestablished, and that implies bringing in the recommendations made by Elections Canada before the next election. I don't see the government being keen to do that. I see a bit of backstepping. But on the point you raise, don't forget that Elections Canada said that there were fraudulent calls in more than 200 ridings across this country, more than two-thirds of the ridings. Now, how is one individual, one young individual, apparently without access to central phone numbers, possibly alone going to be able to reach all those ridings? I think there has to be other people involved. Whether this court case will reveal those names or not remains to be seen.
Michelle Rempel, here, let me show you a clip. This is Michael Sona's position. He's now got a lawyer, so he's not making any more statements. But again, here's what he told me last October, and frankly, I've spoken to him since, and he has not wavered from this position. Check this out.
I'm not going to take the fall for something that I didn't do.
You're not willing to take the fall for something you didn't do?
No, and all the anonymous sources in the world can point the finger at me, but I'm not going to take responsibility for something that I'm not responsible for.
You think you're being made the fall guy?
I think that there's some people that maybe had an interest in seeing me take the fall for it.
Now that's what he says, Michelle Rempel. The problem is he hasn't named these some people yet, and so there's lots of allegations. Is it time, given the seriousness and the public interest in this, why not call a public inquiry?
Well, I guess 3 points on that, Evan. First of all, you mentioned the exact right point. This is playing out in court, and Michael Sona will have his day there, and for that reason, we have public inquiry for these things. Second point, for Mr. Dewar to say that there is some sort of larger plot going on, I'd remind him that he doesn't have the immunity that he has in the House of Commons, and that would be akin to me saying that that's akin to me saying that because he ran in the leadership race, had some sort of involvement with his party taking
I have no idea what you're talking about.
illegal
I said
donations
that
in their
if anyone
last
believes
convention.
that he acted alone, I think it's surprising.
It's the same type of allegation, Evan. Thirdly,
so
for
Mr.
McCallum
just a second,
to
let
say,
me
let me finish,
just a second,
for
Michelle Rempel, I want to just make sure I understand that.
So do I.
Are you suggesting that someone may bring charges now to Mr. Dewar for what exactly? I'm just trying to figure that out.
We need to know.
I'm just saying that we all need to focus on what is happening here. Elections Canada has investigated a single source, a single writing, and is proceeding with an investigation that our party has fully cooperated with. I just don't think that it's right or integrous for my colleagues to be suggesting anything other than that. For Mr. McCallum to say that the Canadians want integrity in the electoral process, absolutely. Yet I should remind him that it's been his party that has been the only one recently who's been charged under the Elections Canada Act. So I think it's very rich for my colleagues to make these grand statements when our party has been the one who has worked strongly with Elections Canada on this matter. These are campaigns that are registered individually. People have responsibility in that, and we will see that play out in this court case.
Okay, just for the record on that, I want Paul Dewar to respond. Well, however, I should mention that I have been told by Michael Sona and others that certainly members from the central headquarters, from the main campaign, were actively involved in that and visited the riding of Guelph. So the level of involvement, I'm not sure what it was or whether anything was done improperly, but I certainly have been told there's some relationship. What it was, I don't know. Paul Dewar.
Well, I'm not going to take the bait and respond. I mean, I have no idea what Michelle's referring to. I simply suggested that it would appear that that we didn't. Excuse me? Excuse me? Are you going to tell me what to say? I'm not a member of the Conservative caucus, so I will say what I want to say. And I want to say the following, is that it's clear from the response from Michelle, from the Conservatives, is that they're very worried. They've had the scandal of Panashway. We're having to talk about this. And what it means is that this government's more engaged in damage control than actually dealing with the affairs of the nation and helping out everyday Canadians. I won't actually take the bait from Michelle, and I know that this is the way they operate, the Conservatives, is that they will attack anyone, even those who are pointing out that it's pretty absurd to think that this one individual acted alone, which is all I said, and I'll say again.
All right, John McCallum.
I just want to clarify one point. One member of the Liberal Party was not charged under the Elections Canada Act. The issue was involving the CRTC, and Elections Canada said that instance was cleared up very satisfactory manner. But I think this is a weird debate we're having rather than getting to the heart of the issue, which is the integrity of Canada's electoral system and whether the government is going to implement the Election Canada recommendations to fix it. All we get is veiled threats of suing us from the government representative. It's a bit strange.
Our party is, I just want to close
you're
by
great,
saying that our party is working very closely with
investigation
Elections Canada
Michelle.
on this.
All right, I can't hear about Michelle Rempel, real quick.
You know, I just want to close by saying that since day one on this file, Evan, our party has proactively, we went to Elections Canada and said, can you please look into this and work closely with us to find out what's going on here? This is something that we embrace, that we look forward to seeing the end to, because, you know, I think that one thing we all can agree on is that, yes, Canadians absolutely expect integrity in the election system. It's something that promotes our democracy and is what makes us Canadian. This is why our party has worked very strongly and closely with Elections Canada, and I look forward to seeing a positive outcome on this file.
All right, last word, Mr. Dewar, real quick.
Well, I just think it's pretty obvious from Michelle's comments and from the way the Conservatives are reacting to this. They're worried about where this is going, but what Canadians need to be concerned with is, you know, why do we have a government that's continuing these scandals? The Panache Way scandal, this one is seemingly touching them. And at what point will they just say, we need to fix the law and we have to come clean as to what exactly happened? To say that they're cooperating with Elections Canada is a bit rich because, frankly, they have to, as does every party.
I got to leave it there. Interesting, again, we won't know what happens until I think May 3rd is the first court date. So we're looking forward to May 3rd, just seeing what exactly happens here. Michelle Rempel, Paul Dewar, John McCallum, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we want to hear from you. Here's our ballot box question. Do you expect more charges to be laid in this robocalls affair? There's only one right now against Michael Sona, but do you expect more? Let us know what you think. Go to the ballot box section of our Facebook page, cbcnews.ca. You can also scan the QR code. That's at the bottom of your screen. That'll zap you instantly to our ballot box. And, of course, if you have comments on anything on the show, be part of the conversation. We've told you the name of the person who's the front runner as the new U.S. ambassador to Canada. We've talked about the robocalls affair. Let us know what you think. At Evan Solomon CBC is my Twitter handle, but go to us on Facebook, go to us online. And, of course, we always do post your reaction on the comment board throughout the program to keep this a dialogue.